So, the Insta360 One X2.
Just to set the record straight, I bought and paid for this camera myself, and I've never owned a 360 camera before.
Even just a few years ago, these 360 cameras were a little bit of a gimmick. And then the GoPro Max came out, and suddenly people started to take notice, see the potential that the technology had, and use them a little bit more seriously. I've had this camera for about a week or so now, and as you saw from the little intro sequence, I've mainly been taking it out on the hill with me skiing, either using it on the invisible selfie stick or mounted on top of my GoPro in this cold shoe mount.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it looks proper comical.
That's a real look.
I ordered a ski kit, but at the time of recording this, it's still en route and due to arrive soon. You guys should know that when you order this, it comes from China, so it's going to take a little while. Mine took about 12 days to arrive. One of the things I was worried about was image quality compared to something like a more traditional action camera. And actually I'm quite impressed. It can punch in quite far without losing too much detail, and it's definitely passable for the most uses. Also, the flow state stabilization is definitely on a par with the hyper-smooth stabilization inside the GoPro. And I've never really had any issues with wobbly footage, even when it's on a selfie stick, fully extended and just shoved into my backpack. The real benefits to a 360 camera over something like a traditional action camera is that you can put it anywhere and you know that you'll be capturing all that's going on. More than a few times when I've used my GoPro, I've missed part of the shot because of the angle that I've had it and not been able to use the footage. With this camera, you can just reframe it. Now, the battery life hasn't really been much of a concern compared to something like a GoPro. I don't know whether that's because I've only used it for a few minutes here and there over the course of the morning, whether because it's been quite warm recently, that's had an effect on it, or maybe just because the battery's still quite new. Like I said, I've only had it for a week or so and not properly tested it yet. The touchscreen on the camera is actually pretty good, and for the most part, I've not had any difficulty navigating the menus and changing the settings. I've pretty much been using standard in 5.7K at 30 frames per second the entire time. But there's also a bunch of other features like star lapse, bullet time, time warp, and photos, which I want to try out. Also in the Insta360 mobile app, there's a section called Shot Lab where you can add kind of different effects to the clips, and I've not even scratched the surface of what's possible with that yet. I thought that the stitching would be a really big issue, and actually it's barely noticeable unless you look for it or you do something close up on someone's face. If you use it like an action camera, then generally the footage is moving quickly and it's a non-issue. So we spoke earlier about the reframing, which is actually a positive and a negative. The downside being that it requires extra processing. Now you've got three options here. The mobile app, which is really intuitive, but you need a pretty capable phone and it will absolutely drain your battery, and then you need to transfer the files off of your phone onto the computer or wherever you're going to use them. You've got the desktop app, which I find to be a little bit confusing, and not all of the features that are on the mobile app are also on the desktop app. So then finally, there's an Adobe Premiere Pro plugin, which you would have thought is great because the workflow is then more streamlined for just using it straight away in the video. But actually the reframing is quite CPU intensive, and my laptop's been struggling, even though it doesn't have a problem with 4K files usually. So I end up having to make proxies and it's a bit of a faff. On the other hand, if you just want to put a few clips up onto Instagram or wherever and just use the mobile app, that's very straightforward. The audio quality on the Insta360 One X2. Hello, this is how I sound from roughly a metre away, but it's an action camera and it's waterproof, so I don't really expect much. Overall, I'm really impressed with this camera. It's definitely something I'm happy I bought. For me, just being able to take it, chuck it in my backpack and know that it's good to go for the day. I can just whip it out whenever and it takes a few seconds and you're good to go. I don't need to worry about where it's angled because it's capturing everything around it. It's brilliant. I do wish that the post-processing of the videos was a little bit more streamlined. It's a fairly minor niggle. Anyway, I hope you guys found this video useful, and if you did, it would really help me out if you gave the video a like. I'll definitely be making more content on this camera over the next few weeks, so subscribe and stick around if you want to see more from that. I'll catch you guys in the next one.